Or have your log at your busy. I'll put over it.
Yeah, she read the towel.
Yeah, I'm not going to sprung for a couple.
Ready? You can call meeting in order. Yay! We finally have enough. No, it's not time for a break. I trust everybody's had a good summer. And you stay very, very cool. Jeremy, we're glad you're back safe.
Yeah, everything went well.
It was a quick trip, but glad you're back. Do we have any reports from council?
Mayor, I represented the city today at the Grapevine College ISD New Educators Lunch. There are 185 new teachers who will be joining GCISD. It's my understanding that there was a lot of coaching going on this summer. That is the term they use. So other districts coach the students from GCISD, the teachers from GCISD.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, we do. We poached somebody right over there.
We have poached from Haltom City.
More than once.
We've never coached one that's been happy with, really.
I can't win.
No.
Tim? Anything?
Well, drinking Buddy's Diet Coke, does that count?
No, we don't care.
Then don't ask me questions.
You have a good day.
Yeah, it is. It's a good day. Yeah.
That's a great summer. I got moved in. That's a good thing. On Monday we had an event at the library, and I won't take away from anybody's thunder, but we had standing room only, and people sitting out in the hall, and it was a great event. So once again, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we were talking about that last night in the city about how packed it was. I had a meeting, but Don was there, and he said he got there at 6:30 and the parking lot was packed.
Oh yeah, exactly. So that little comment we had about what is the amphitheater in Arlington? That was another example why we need to step that up a little bit. Well, we're ready, right?
Jeremy, any reports?
Yeah, mid-July I attended the Euless Small Business Association. You guys get our district attorney, Ms. Sharon, and everything. Very interesting in her way and her judicial side of the house that she's been working. So very interesting. The Euless Small Business Association seems to be very strong.
She's always had really favorable feelings about Euless. She loves Euless.
Awesome. It was good to hear.
Sharon, my good views.
It must be permanent, that's all I can say.
Eddie, do you have any reports?
My apologies to everyone for being late. I don't know why I thought I was supposed to be here at 4:30, but
It's okay. Jeremy only beat you by 5 minutes.
no, it's only like 15.
No, that was Tim.
But no reports.
Okay, Kim, do you have anything?
No, Mayor.
Then we'll give it to Gary.
A slew of stuff here. That's a good effort. I remember you've been coaching with foreign terms. You slow maybe as well. You know Mary Jean Maloney, that is the local representative for Atmos Gas. Mary Jean has announced her retirement. She'll be leaving at the end of the year. And has had an extremely long career. She was with Atmos since the oil and gas. 40 years. 40. A long time. So we'll let you know if there's some kind of retirement function for that. Also, y'all mentioned concert at the library. There's a concert at Texas Star a week from Thursday. What is that date? The 21st. And that is Bree Bagwell and the Bags, or what is it, Bree Bagwell and Bree Bagwell. And so that will be outside the pavilion, so we'll have some dinner at Texas Star and go out there for that concert. The last one they had out there was really good, and if you had been there, you would have been able to see him sing. And fortunately, we did not hear him sing, we could see her. Let's see. What comment on the setup? You kind of, when you have a new setup, you learn where the strong personalities are. I've always known Miss Allenfeld was a strong personality, but when the mayor came in and she started elbowing her over to the side. While she's taking over, and she's trying to hide it by sitting off to the
No,
side.
because I feel terrible that when my back is to all these people, so I'm like,
They-
That's exactly why I'm not sitting there.
But seriously, the mayor is sitting where she is because that's where she wants to sit. And the mayor should sit where she wants to sit. So, but y'all give us your feedback on this, or we'll try this for a couple of meetings and see how
You
it
put a
works.
mirror over it for me?
Mayor?
Yeah.
No, he just really likes looking at himself. He's kind of starring in his own movie.
I think there are budget work sessions work well as well closer to see that when the directors and the delivery can be presenting to the podium. Makes it a little more comfortable for those that are particularly my side. It's really a pleasure to present. So we'll see how that goes. The Development Corporation Board of Directors met last night and approved the EDC budget. There was strong support for it. There was one comment that expressed the need to continue to head towards bringing economic development and making sure that we're well-funding economic development incentives. So that's a good comment there.
You know, if you're in a sitting position of honor, you got to turn your phone on.
Profound. There was a time I could quote what used to play on the television when it went off at 11 o'clock. It was kind of played with that kind of music, but that was all time ago, and I never got it started like a heart vision. Anyway, we are having a significant problem with our air conditioning in the police building. And so hopefully we get that part in tomorrow.
All 3 compressors shut up today, and they've already got one of them out.
Okay, but that is a major building when the air conditioning's down. Ironically, I think I reported to you last week that our jail was shut down for a security upgrade, and that has not gone real well. They have gone long on it, but it worked out. It was really kind of a blessing in disguise that they went long, I guess. So where are they on that now?
Well, we're hoping within the next day or
So,
by the time that air conditioning gets fixed.
had we had detainees in there, we would have had to take them out. So, and they actually got out themselves, the doors were locked. It really wound up, I say, it's a blessing in disguise. We could not have kept them in there and heat, no air conditioning. So we keep them.
I was going to say, we like the officers longer.
Detainees, so, let's see, so they're in Bedford. If you have anyone like to visit, we'll go to Bedford. You may see some activity going on at Fire Station number 3 down on Highway 10. You'll recall we leased that a couple of months ago to U.S. Concrete to their use as a laboratory. And so they're doing some amendments to the building down there in preparation for that. And do we know when they may move down?
No, sir, I don't, but they are full blown into the remodel right now.
Hopefully they'll move in pretty quickly. Also, as far as another building renovation, the vinyl wall covering is being replaced in the library lobby right now, and that will be lined up.
Would be complete by the end of the week.
And once that's done, the tribute to Mayor Sauer will be placed in there. We need to put it in there until this wall covering is put in, so that will occur. Want to remind everybody, tell everybody Mr. Price told me this morning that he found access Euless and how easy it was to use. And I hope everybody learns that. It is very, very simple. We've had a couple of complaints here lately about that we're not doing enough enforcement of our water restrictions. And that should be the community job. It should be ours to take the enforcement once they're reported. But it's like I preached for years, communities have eyes and ears for the police department and crime prevention in the city. In this, if you see someone that is watering, don't feel like you're a towel table. In many cases, they don't even know. We send them a nice letter the first time. It just reminds them that there's watering restrictions. So help us out with that. Tell all your neighbors if they see someone watering at an inappropriate time, let us know. Sir.
Can you refresh me? If somebody puts in new grass, though, they can water it. That really doesn't apply apply to the watering restrictions. If they put in new sod, they can water for several weeks in a row. Isn't that the way it reads?
Okay, you do landscaping.
Okay.
Couldn't that be very fun?
No. Just for the record.
You can't go put a plug.
Mary was a friend.
That's already are. And even that's probably something we might have, I don't know, so we don't bother. But you're gonna hear in a little while a report from Gary Landers about parking and several code violations. It is oh so easy to, and I did one on my way to work this morning, on a watering violation. So easy to just take that phone and put that in there. It's easier for some people than others. I have a little trouble with this. For those people that are younger than me, I think it's very easy. Same thing with, if you see standing water, we're going to hear about mosquitoes tonight. It is critical we get a handle on that. So if you see, whether it's, you're out walking and you see somebody's got standing water, it's in a creek or whatever, same thing, put it on access sheet, 7 days, put it in there. And finally, the Presidential Volunteer Awards that is sponsored by the Police Alumni Association, Fire Alumni Association, that will be at the 28th, Thursday the 28th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. And there will be some really good awards for some long-term volunteers that Mr. Bond is arranging. So everyone is invited to that. We're ready for our reports. If you're ready, man.
Ready?
Mr. Altos, you ready?
I'm ready.
Mr. McDonald is going to talk with us about a Green Ribbon grant.
I feel like I might be the answer to a trivia question. First to present up here like this.
Don't need them.
I won't put my name on there. There we go. We recently, and I think y'all might have been told at the budget retreat, but we recently applied for a grant opportunity that we kind of found out about at spur of the moment. So luckily the application wasn't a real detailed application or hard to put together, but what was kind of the challenge was to try to decide where in TXDOT right-of-way we might have future plans of doing some landscaping. With the grant, what the grant presented to the cities was if within your city you have TXDOT right-of-way, you can apply for this grant where they will fund landscaping projects 100%, no local match required, so up to $200,000. So Chris and I met and talked about a couple different areas. The first, obviously, that came to mind was the proposed trail through Glade Parks along the 121 corridor there, the service roads and 121. We thought to try to reestablish some of that area might be a good application to submit. So we did that, and in addition to that, we also submitted a project at Bear Creek Parkway and 183. And the reason we decided to submit this was because obviously with the new development that Mike's been working on there in the old Arbor Day site, we thought that this would be a nice entry into our city, an entry that we don't currently have landscaped, nor do we have really a good marquee sign like we do at other entry points of the city. So what this would include, let me back up here. We were approved for $112,000 for this particular site. The project would include landscaping, planning, irrigation and medians, as well as the right-of-way on the east and west side of Bear Creek Parkway and International. And with the reclaimed water line that has recently gone in that area, we're excited because we will be able to bring irrigation to the site to help support the landscaping that we decided to put in this area. So this is from the bridge looking back north towards the development. As you can see, there's the median that would be landscaped, as well as the area on either side here, and then again opposite there on the other side. This is just another shot of that area, but going south in that same spot. So we're in the median in the center, and then the two grassy areas on either side of Bear Creek Parkway are there. It actually turns into International. This is the aerial Google Earth shot that was taken with the grant application, just to, again, give you an idea of that particular area and the landscaping that had been proposed. That's just showing some trees and shrubs, native grasses. Our intent here would be to obviously stay with our Texas Smartscape theme, drought tolerant plants, very low water requirements. Just a closer shot of that same thing. And I wanted to take a shot of this, the marquee sign that we currently have. And this has been here for years, and it's been recently redone because we had somebody crash into it. So we recently had the rock redone here, but that's the back view. Here's the front view. I present this today because if we want to, I think here's a great opportunity that we can carry on with the marquee signs that we have around town, with the arch and the star in the center. Chris has worked on a lot of those. So if that's something that you all are interested in, this would not be part of the grant. This would need to be funded by the city. It was not included in the grant application, and besides, it's out of TXDOT right away, so it would not be included. It could be included as part of the project, but not funded by the state. It would need to be funded by the city. So if that's something that you all are interested in, we can certainly explore that opportunity.
And there's existing budget funds for monument signs. That's kind of throwback to the past. I kind of like that sign, but we know on that side of it, there's really nothing you can do.
What do you say, come back soon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with that. So we really had an objection with the intent to, as the project's done, with
Is there any anticipation that this bridge will be demolished or anything when they do 183?
I don't know.
The latest, Christopher Nile, which y'all heard something otherwise, that bridge is not pretty
That's the last I heard.
good. And that's part of the criteria for this grant is it has to be outside of an area anticipated for construction. Mike, right back to that, where the TXDOT right of way is outside the curves, the east and west curves, will any of the developers be taking care of that?
When it's developed, yes, sir. I mean, it's currently their responsibility. And we typically have them mow some strip in 12, 15 feet, something like that.
But now on the TXDOT right away, they don't, they only take care of, they mow it twice a year, or something like that. So the property owner, just as a matter of principle, is going to deal with mowing or doing whatever is over there. I know I have to do that on my properties that have TXDOT right away. I have to take care of everything that's out there. So if we put the landscaping in there, are we then going to maintain the landscaping part of it?
Yes, sir.
Shrubs and trees and
Yes, sir.
whatever else?
But it is in those areas.
Right. So just in the four corners, basically.
So I wanted to show, because there is still an opportunity, even though this did not receive funding in the initial award for, and this is the right of way along the proposed trail going to Glade Park. But I wanted to show it because after talking to David McCaskill, who helped us put together the grant application, and with TXDOT, there have been instances in the past with similar grant opportunities where cities either don't spend all the money that they were awarded, or their project wasn't ready as much as they said it was when they were awarded the funds, And being that this one was only $27,000 to do the landscaping there, we feel like there still might be an opportunity on the back end of the grant cycle that we could potentially be awarded money to still do this project. So I just wanted to put that up there so you all would know if in fact we do receive word at some point, you can be familiar with the project.
Ray, at some point, in the not too distant future, we probably need to get you to bring us just an overall trail report that goes up in the Grapevine and Collinville. When we talk with folks, particularly some of the newer folks, about the trail network and how we're trying to tie into it, I don't know, I don't have the ability to describe it, but it might help him to have a point of reference to the critical nature of that trail to go out and go beyond to really even all the way to 35.
Yes, sir.
As I understand, that trail system will get you to 35.
Eventually, yes, sir.
We'll do that in the next 2 or 3 meetings.
Ray, that trail currently ends on the east side of 157, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Where it's the dead wall.
At Creekwood Estates, yes, ma'am, right there, you're right. And I just wanted to touch briefly, since we're talking about some landscape projects, and I know this is something that you all are passionate about and had discussion at the budget retreat as well. Chris and I met with a couple of our park guys and our soon-to-be degree horticulturists actually at this site here, behind the Harold Sammons Finance Building, and talked about starting there with a project that we will be designing and bringing some ideas forward on what we intend to do there. But also just wanted to talk briefly on this project because I think, as Chris and I talked, there's some real opportunity here even to do some things outside of what is shown on this plan and that y'all have seen. For instance, along the spine road here, these medians here, I was talking to Mr. McCamey about perhaps even proposing to do something with these medians along the Smartscape theme as well, maybe something like we've got out on Hector Drive, for a couple different reasons. One is to dress it up. I think it would give it a very nice look as you drive through the City Hall campus. Number two is, kind of selfishly, any turf that we take away gets removed from the mowing contract. And we all know where that's headed. So, and then thirdly, I think also there's an opportunity, the mayor sent some pictures over the summer. A friend of hers had gone on a trip, and I don't remember where exactly she went, Mayor, but she took some pictures and had some really interesting ideas as it related to landscaping and with the light poles out here, and I think it might lend itself to doing some really neat things, maybe with some hanging baskets and other things like that as you go through the spine road and through the campus. And obviously we would have to modify all the irrigation completely, probably redo the irrigation here, but just kind of wanted to talk about that, see if there was anything that was passionate to any of you. If you all have had any thoughts on anything you'd like us to look at here, not only as it relates to this project, but the entire City Hall campus here.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea because not only the reasons that you listed, the fourth reason is that it would give citizens an idea what you really can do with Sarasota.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It's
And I know that's
still
important to
down.
Mike, as he's expressed to me on several occasions, the opportunity that as when developers and others come in to talk about what they intend to do, he can actually take them out and show them what we've done and use it kind of as a model for what hopefully they'll do at their location as well. So you're right.
This little part of the discussion is kind of touching on the budget, because we all in a budget discussion, we want us to break out part of that landscape we'll do some aid for this upcoming year. And it's not being considered, but it's focused on the attendance of the budget. So that's kind of the direction of seeing, and look at here at these meetings. We probably need to set a little bit of better example for the residents, for the shopping centers, if they come, that there's a better way. That's the hardest thing, the water that there is. And if you've got a strip beside your driveway, maritime irrigation system, water without going there. We have the same thing out here, plus it's time consuming, labor intensive, so probably a better way to do. We've done some of this on 157 of those meetings a number of years ago. Put in $1 planes or no planes, in some cases there or something, but that's some of the ideas we're following up on that, as well as Mr. Collins' group continues to look at bringing forward some recommended changes on the planning ordinance to give some dollars some relief and to do better dollars. Any questions, comments? Mr. Crane is going to talk with us about West Nile virus. That's little for a while in the last couple of weeks, and the final diagnosis was West Nile virus, and he was in terrible shape here for a while. So, I'm not scared by that, but when it is particularly for older people that have a compromised health situation, it is critical. So we are taking it very seriously when we get good care out of it.
As you know, we've been working with Tarrant County Health Department, and actually the staff was out with them, with code enforcement and public works staff, actually walking some of our streams this afternoon. We think, and I personally think the reason the counts have gone up this year versus last year is we had a wet spring and a wetter summer, and that gives us an opportunity to do that. When you compare 2012, 2013, and 2014, 2012 was out of sight. I don't know what happened that year. I know what happened last year. It was so dry that we didn't have any, I don't think, in Euless. And then this year it's gotten wet again, and so we're having those. We actually had a meeting with staff and all the our sister cities met in Colleyville this afternoon, and actually had a briefing from Tarrant County health people, reminding people what to do, what to look for, making sure standing water is not an issue in the area. Making sure that you're protected when you go out. I know I walk and run early and late, and I don't put anything on, and if I come in and keel over one day, you'll know it was because I didn't do what I'm telling everyone else to do. But it's just something that we need to make sure that people are aware of. The number of, there's been 2,298 mosquito pools submitted, and all have tested negative for the SLEV. But we've had 29 pools in the area that have tested for the West Nile, and Euless has had 5 of those, and I'm sure you know that. Like I said, we have been working with code, and I think Gary will mention that when he comes up, trying to find these pockets where we're having problems with the mosquitoes and where they're testing positive. Any questions? One more thing before I take your question. You know, we're actually spraying every 2 weeks, and our next spraying period is Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of this coming week. And that's kind of where we are. I know some of our sister cities don't believe in spraying, and some do, and it's a mixed bag there, because we're never going to make everybody happy doing that. But I think in the past, Euless has pretty well controlled their West Nile issue with the spraying that we've done. Yes, sir.
I know that you've done a good job putting information on our website, but what's the takeaway for our citizens, I mean, today? You and I both know what the takeaway is, but can we do a better job getting that information out? I mean, have we hit every resource we have people to get, especially our seniors? Are we doing this message at the Family Life Center with people who are mainly affected by the impact of West Nile?
Bessie, can you?
We email it, and that may hit some of the population, but we're not currently putting it at the Euless Family Life Center or anything like that, but it's not a bad idea. We can easily send that to Diane to post, or Robbie, or someone over there, just trying to hit some of our more popular spots to get the word out.
Especially, I mean, we all know, we've all seen reports and understand where the affected areas are along our creeks and corridors, but as Gary's already alluded to, the people who are mainly affected are the very young and very old. So I think if we're gonna do this measure, I really think that's what we need to really concentrate on. That's just my thoughts.
Very y'all, y'all do the education down at the same time.
Well, I mean, we do have our lunch and learn programs where we have speakers come in, and I don't know that anyone has directly talked about that, but I would certainly get with Diane and make sure that, I mean, maybe Jeff could even do some posters for us that we could hang up down there and make sure that we get the word out and see. In fact, maybe we can have the health department come and
And she has said that she would do that anytime we wanted to. She was actually walking the creeks with us today, and she did a briefing over at Colleyville. I'm sure she would come and do that as well.
Great idea.
This is another example of personal responsibility in a long way. Spraying deep and make sure you're not going to stand in water. We're going to do all we can. And interestingly, he said some of the cities don't believe in spraying. If you see those numbers of positive tests go up, you see cities that didn't believe in spraying that suddenly become believers in spraying. So it's we're not the only ones spraying. Any other questions? That's Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights. We'll be doing after 10 o'clock. There's signs posted at our parks that the spraying is going on, and particularly because we spray the trail. Bobby, down to the edge, the golf course, anywhere we have access to a driveway pickup street.
Correct.
How does it go for our fifth string?
I don't know, something like that.
So you just want to do it Monday, Tuesday, maybe from now on, throughout the rest of the.
Every other week.
Every other week.
Every other week.
And that's kind of following the recommendations of the Tarrant County Public Health. We used to do, you know, half of the city one night, half the other night. That was it. We got a little more equipment, we got a little better at doing it, and the Tarrant County representatives said I can't sit here and tell you why.
What's the life cycle?
Yeah,
The ARPA, the ag.
but it's, so we do it 3 nights in a row. Every week.
And we have 2 trucks that are actually doing it.
Yeah, we don't have any complaints.
No.
Most people don't know what's going on, so we publicize it, but it's not, most people in the house.
I've had a couple residents call and ask, they were outside at a certain time, did we actually spray during that time? And we have it down now where we can actually pinpoint basically within a 15, 20 minute time when we're in a neighborhood, where we can say, you know, this is Jones, we didn't get there until 1 in the morning, that type of thing. So if anybody has that kind of question, we can ask.
I drove it late one night, and I was driving down by Bear Creek, or by Bobby Park, because I forgot that we were spraying this stuff. Where's the fire? Because it is a little smoky.
Mr. Landon is going to give us a code update, but part of that, we're going to talk with you about swimming pools. The city can do all we want to do on the spraying, and as long as we have swimming pools and other pools of water that are not being taken care of, it just,
I'll skip forward.
Okay, you'll hit on that first, Gary, and then we'll back.
This is, this, as House of Code wears many, many hats. This is just one of the hats that they wear in trying to help our other departments combat these problems. So we asked David Allen, in conjunction with James Witt, to develop us a map that identified where every pool was in the city. And so that we knew where they were at, and then once we start getting our problem areas, we can kind of plot them on a map and know where we need to go back to year after year, so we know people that aren't taken care of. There's, just so you know, and I know it's really hard to see, but every one of these little dots on the map is a pool throughout the city. And just the residential area, there's 1,223 pools across the city. And then you got apartment complexes that makes up 97, church, city, daycares, and then motels. And we inspect every public pool that's out there. Every single public pool, the code inspectors go out there a minimum of twice a year to inspect those pools. They have to be inspected before they can be open as well at the beginning of the season. And this year we sent all 6 of the code inspectors to a more advanced class
to learn different things about how the chemicals react, how much chemicals they need to keep there, not just taking your little tester that you get at Leslie's pool and going out there testing water to make sure it has chlorine in it, just so they can be more educated on what needs to be done to keep the pools safe. But also what we can do to those pools that people aren't taking care of and how we can back that. One of the things that we're doing, I'll skip through it, 1,200, we've actually had 34 residential pool cases that have been called into us this year, where citizens call in and complain that this pool's not being taken care of, it's green, I can't see through it, or it's cloudy. And we go out there and we actively deal with that either. And there's a variety of things that they can do to take care of it. We call a pool company, come in and shock it. They can drain the pool. In some severe cases, we actually treat the pool with, I forget what they're called, mosquito, they're called donuts. The biscuits you just throw in the pool. And our code guys will actually treat those pools as a preventative measure before it becomes a cesspool for all the mosquitoes. And so try to get it on the front end. Currently, right now, as of today, we only have 4 active cases that we're working, dealing with that. We deal with watering cases on top of that. So anybody that is watering illegally, as Mr. McKinney said earlier, people enter that into Access Euless, and then that complaint comes to us, and we actually go out and make contact. Our first deal on everything we do is to get voluntary compliance and go talk to them and tell them 9 times out of 10, they want to comply. They want to do what the right thing is. And it's either their timer has broke or the power interruption, and they don't even think about going out and checking the timer and resetting it so that it'll come on the right days. But with water sprinklers comes pools of water that just sit and become stagnant, that water area. We actually, as the guys are driving around and patrolling and doing things, when we see that, we try to go contact the residents and talk to them about repositioning the sprinklers so that it doesn't pool water in the street, it doesn't pool water in holes in the yard, maybe filling in the holes in the yard so that we don't have a pool of water sitting there that can breed mosquitoes. So it's not just the creeks and things like that breed mosquitoes. We as residents cause some of that as well. So again, that education of going and knocking on the door and telling them, hey, this is what it's causing, this is the problem that it is, this is what it can do. And those people are most of the time readily active to go do whatever needs to be done. We've only issued 1 citation, and that's gone through a lot of things to get to that point for failure to maintain the pool. And after that citation was issued, we finally get someone's attention, and then they come back and they're doing what they're supposed to do. So that's the issue, what we're doing with pools, and they're working with Public Works daily. James Patterson, who y'all know, is working very closely with James Witt on a daily basis. They're talking back and forth through email, and they're getting their information to the code guys out on the street so that they know what they're doing out there. Questions? No.
Quite on another one, we have some people that, when the pool gets bad, they want to convert it to koi pond. That work that way, so.
No.
But if it's, the koi pond, it's got to be maintained as well, correct?
And we have a couple of those that we deal with on a regular basis. Going backwards, let's just go back. Talk about overtime parking and the parking issue. I started this off by saying code where's many hats. This is another one of those. And this calendar year, over 100 cases that they've worked where people have called in. Not to negate the ones they come across and deal with on their own. These are the ones that citizens call in and actually complain about and wants to come out and do something. And those are a variety of things. Do not get them mixed up with junk vehicles. Junk vehicles is a totally different animal whenever it's parked on the person's property and we're dealing with it in a different manner. We have a 24-hour parking violation ordinance on books. And that ordinance says that you can't have a vehicle parked standing still on public roadway for more than 24 hours, 24 continuous hours. When it does happen that way, the code guys go out. This is just a truck parked on the deal, and they go out and they see the red tag, on the window, they'll go out and red tag it. They have to chalk the tires, mark the tires to make sure if it moves 6 inches, we're gonna be again. So you see how this can play out sometimes. We'll also contact the registered owner if it's in front of a residence or a business. We may contact the business owner, contact them and try to get them to try to have them voluntarily comply with their order.
By the way, you know, this is something we need everybody to help us with, because that, go back to that one, I had to go turn this one in. This is at Suite 2801. There have been millions of dollars spent out there, that development, and where that truck is parked is one of the areas that was created for on-street parking, to create this village-style environment once it's all built out. Well, this thing just sat there, whether it's there or in the neighborhood, you don't have to put up with it. And we want people to call us. And if that guy's parking that thing there, you know, overnight, while he's in sleeping and using it every day, that's one thing. But this did move. And you see them everywhere, and that's all it takes. In fact, what Mr. Price said this morning, it is very simple. All it takes is less than a minute, probably two. You and I can do that quick.
And it gives us a record, it gives us something to follow up on, because the access Euless is constantly reminding us that you got to follow up on it the next days, that you can call it and set timers so that you know it doesn't get lost, in other words.
But the way we keep that new, nice stuff looking new and nice is to be pretty aggressive from the beginning. So, y'all send those things in.
Another problem that they deal with, I mean, it's still a parking violation, it's on the street, but people do repairs, or they got fluids that are leaking on the ground, and we deal with that constantly. Obviously, you can see this car's a little high in the front end. What do you think? There's probably not an engine in it, so, I mean, they just pushed it out of the driveway while they're thinking, okay, if I don't have to deal with it from a junk vehicle, I can push it on the street one out, and you deal with it on a whole different route. They got a perfectly good driveway to do this, or a garage to do it in, and that's the transmission laying on the ground out there working on it in the street, and all that transmission fluid and everything is going on our public street. Obviously, he didn't want it in the driveway, so he's going to move it out to the street. So we severely dealt with this.
Yeah, we really need that, because we've got a legal obligation from a stormwater pollution prevention standpoint, because there's not but one place for that transmission fluid to go, and that's down the street.
One of the things that's always a big problem is people parking over the sidewalk. And if you look, this driveway is long enough, and the arrow's pointing to, all that car in the front's got to do is pull up, and the car in the back can get ahead of the drive, get ahead of that sidewalk. And you go knock on the door and you tell them, here's the problem. And most of the time, this last car is maybe the kid that came home at the very end, and they don't know any better. And it's just education again. Those people want to really want to get it out of the way. Again, you know, got a boat in the driveway. Obviously, the truck's not going to fit as well. If you're driving the truck every single day, parked on the street, facing the right direction. Travel trailers is another thing that you see. Obviously, it's not hooked up, loading, getting ready to go on a trip or anything like that. It's parked on the street. They cannot be parked on the street. If there's extenuating circumstances, you can get a permit from the police department. You have to apply. That's one of the few permits that you have to apply for at the police department. You come there, you can get a permit to park it on the street for 7 days, but you can't get more than 3 of those in a 12-month period. So you can only get 3 of those, and it's just for a period of 7 days. But you got to explain the circumstances, so on and so forth. And the permit doesn't cost anyone a thing. It just lets us know that it's going to be there, and we give you a tag in the window where then it inadvertently get towed off, and now you've lost a $40,000 RV. No, it's not my house. I know what you're thinking. Property maintenance update. I was asked to kind of give you an update on where we're at on the apartment communities, and this is just kind of a breakdown of what our tiers are. At Tier 1, we have 46 properties throughout the city that have reached Tier 1. Now, when we started the program,
4 years ago, roughly 4 years ago, there was a whole lot of resistance, a whole lot of fear as to what the city was going to do. And there wasn't anyone in this. Well, there was one in that category. And it was the oldest property in Euless. But now we've brought that up to 46. Not that all those were terrible, it's just we were pointing out things that they have overlooked for years and years and years. And so they've come around to our way of thinking. They're doing things, they're being proactive versus reactive. And actually taking our reports that we're issuing to them and paying attention to them and applying that to the complex for the future. 32 properties are tier 2, 12 are tier 3. Some success stories. You had properties, these properties that are listed went from a tier 3 to a tier 2 throughout their inspection. And that's the code guys working with them almost on a daily basis, talking to them about the issues that they're having at the property and working through those. And some major repairs being done to different complexes, thousands of dollars being spent. But these went from a tier 3 to a tier 2 status, which is a passing score for the program. And that takes them out of the jeopardy of getting into trouble over a period of time and getting repeated tier 3s over a 3-year period. This, we had one property, we had several, but one we kind of want to show you about went from a tier 2 to a tier 1. And this is just to show you some of the amount of money that they have to spend on these complexes that they have not been spending over the years. They've spent $114,000 the last summer, just during the summer months. And that was all on electrical issues. I think we worked with the fire department, we worked with building inspections, and they basically replaced almost all of the breaker boxes throughout the complex. I see you kind of smiling, Terry, because it's probably on the next one here, where it says, went from tier 3 to a tier 1, and you got Wilshire Manor out there. Everybody knows where Wilshire Manor is. It's behind the bus barn, actually the old Restoration Church behind the bus barn there. That didn't happen very easily. It took 3 owners and an owner, the final owner from Colorado, moving here for a period of 12 weeks to stay at the property to make sure that everything was done the way we wanted it done. So he actually invested the money. He did what needed to be done to get that property to where it is. And we're talking AC units that were ducted across the ground. I've showed you pictures and pictures and pictures over the last couple of years of the different things at this complex that they have done. And they have corrected every bit of that and really done a good job out there. So
That's a huge success story.
other success stories of Mission Point. We had some struggles with Mission Point. When you're dealing with the manager on site versus dealing with the owner, and the manager's not telling the owner everything the owner needs to know, and once you get the owner involved and you bring them into the situation, they'll do anything you want. They want it fixed. They don't want to be in jeopardy of having their property taken away. So they're willing to work with you. And 917 El Paso Mission Point, which is behind the old Kmart behind Taco Casa, over there on that side. They're scheduled to have a follow-up inspection next week. We fully expect them to be very high tier 2 or a tier 1 at the finish of that. They've done lots of work, lots of reconstruction to different things. We've even had the building official come out on some structural issues, and they've attacked those, and they've had to get certified building inspectors out there, engineers to re-engineer some things that was actually falling apart, and so they put a lot of work into it. And Alexander Lane, which is Emerald Garden, or Peach Mill, any other names. The gentleman that bought that, he works tirelessly. He comes up here. He lives in Austin. He drives up here on Monday morning and he stays until Friday, and then he goes back to Austin to his family. And he's worked very hard, not without a lot of pain from us and inspections, but he's done a good job, and he's well on his way to getting it out of the tier 3 status as well. That's all I
It's
got.
been a really effective program. That's an example of that this week. Actually, had a hunter from South Africa call, and it's the first of all over the own farm, that's what I'm pretty concerned. So, he was fussing and making some threats, and, you know, what it really boiled down to is it takes those owners getting upset enough to call where they hear the truth, because the few examples that Gary had given us was, you know, one of the bigger problems with air conditioning units. There wasn't screws and condensers outside, so you could pick up stock and access it. Just required a handful of, a box of screws, and somebody would put the screws in. And then the other thing was saying on the condensing units outside, Gary's guys had told them, you know, it was missing the conduit, and so they could go to Home Depot and bought the foam rubber pipe insulation, and they had put that on and taped it up and said, we're good to go. Well, that's, you know, the owner had paid for a construction company to do this, and he's like, well, why are y'all beating us up? Well, it's been, conduit's been put in. Well, he didn't know what he paid for was, you know, foam rubber pipe insulation. So, but it takes those owners getting to that point where they question the folks. That's been the biggest challenge that we've had, and I think the biggest success is getting the owners, it sounds ugly, but kind of getting their attention to where they will question things. There's lots of money spent by the out-of-state owners that I think they have good intentions for the most part, but they don't get good information. Work really, really well. With, one other thing on the apartments, the Concord House and Concord Terrace, the sale of those apartments has closed. It's under new ownership, which is the developer. And they've been working with code, with development, and the fire department. And you will probably begin to see in the not too distant future a consolidation of tenants from Concord Terrace that is very sparsely occupied right now. It will basically be vacated. I don't know if you have any idea what the time frame is on that, but as they're able to be moving people in Concord House is one off on each side. And our encouragement is that they consolidate those tenants into buildings. So if there's buildings that can be vacated in Concord House, that they be vacated as well. We're working with them and monitor it closely. We don't intend to require them to board the building up. They'll have to secure it totally, and then the police department primarily will monitor how, what success they have with keeping vacants and homeless out of there. But that is marching in a really good direction. Really positive progress has been made just in the last few weeks. I think you'll see that occur rather quickly. So that has been a long time.
I'm shocked, I wish I ran. I mean, that's.
So were we,
I mean, that's, I didn't think we'd get there.
then, and with that being said, I talked to James about it today, and, you know, the owner's gone back to Colorado, and his job is to make sure that he puts the right people in place to keep that momentum and keep it up. And he's having a hard time right now getting good managers in there that will keep the maintenance workers doing what needs to be done and actually seeing the problem. It seems like he gets a manager in, and we have to go looking for a police department, being able to get arrested for something, do that again. It's, could it go back the other way? Sure. That's where we're at this.
That property maintenance ordinance, that is only a long way. What's that been, Chris? 5 years?
Really,
sometimes it seems like it takes forever to get in place, but it is working. Mr. Rhodes is going to give us the fire department Well, if you would, I had mentioned them the other day about the, supplement platform.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember the number, but give them a little update on that.
Yes, sir. Well, truck 553, that is the big 110-foot platform. There was an incident in Georgia where basically the same type of fire platform was being operated, and they had a failure of just the aerial component, and the last fly of the ladder slid back on itself, and when it did, that last fly, when it came down and had a sudden stop, the firefighters that were in the bucket, there was some injuries there, and they were transported to the hospital. That in turn caused Sutphen Corporation to look at and want to investigate, and there was an investigation by Nile as well. They're still making looking into that to make a determination if there is any equipment concerns and a fix that would need to be done to make a repair to prevent that from happening again. It's not for sure that that will even happen. Right now, we are running that piece of equipment, but per Sutphen, we can set it up and operate it if we needed to utilize it on a defensive fire and spraying water inside, to fight a fire from outside. And but we won't put anybody in the ladder, in the bucket on the ladder until we get a clearance from Sutphen Corporation. And we've been in contact with them. Kyle and I have worked very closely on that, and we've got certified letters from Sutphen Corporation keeping us abreast of what is happening with that ongoing investigation. So that's where we're at, and I fully expect that we'll be hearing something pretty soon. We'll get that the aerial back in service, and if there are any modifications that need to be made, Sutphen has assured us that there will be no cost to us or any users of those types of fire apparatus. Okay. All right. Well, Mayor and Council, I'm glad to have an opportunity to provide you an update of what's going on in the fire department. And we'll start off here. I do this pretty regularly just to give you an idea of where we are to date. We have run 2,550 emergency calls so far. Our total emergency response time is 5 minutes and 37 seconds. I'll go into that more in detail here in just a minute. Our average fire and EMS training are consistent with what they have been in previous years, and our dollar loss year to date is a little higher than it was this time last year. Last year we were at $831,000. So we're in line. That number really, and I've mentioned this to you before, at the end of the day doesn't mean a whole lot to us, but I like to give it to you. You can have one or two bad fires and it can really jump that dollar loss amount up, or you can have a whole bunch of fires that are low dollar loss, and that's really what we've had the last couple of years. So we keep our fingers crossed, and we don't want any of those big types of fires. So we take it and look at a comparison over the last few years of our call volume, mainly our response times, and you can see that we have had a trend to go up a few seconds over the last few years. But as I mentioned to you in our last update, that in January, February, we really, due to the weather, those months we had response times of 5:43 and 5:49. So that affected us. That this month we were at 5:27 on our response time, more in line with what we like to see. And like the city managers mentioned before, that's from the moment that the 911 call is answered to us arriving at the scene. So we're still very happy with those numbers, but we keep a very close eye each month on where we are at. The 2550, when we project that out through the year, is going to put us about the 4,400 mark, maybe a little higher. So you can see the trend each year. We tend to go up on our calls. We just want to keep our response times where they need to be.
That's calendar year.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Calendar year.
Talking about is fiscal year. You think what our fiscal year is about over. That's not penny, but that we give you that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I've done this the last few times, and I think it's important for you to have an understanding of our picture of our call volume. 71% of our total call volume are EMS calls, whether that's car accidents, just emergency calls at the home, chest pain, difficulty breathing, whatever that is. And that really puts us in line from a national average standpoint of 70%. So we're right there in line with that. Taking it a little further, I want to give you a little more comparison from a EMS standpoint. So far this year, we are actually, this gives you a prediction is what we ended up doing for 2014. We're trending to run and a little higher number and have more patients transported to our area hospitals. We transport about 70% of our total call volume patients to HEB hospital. Now, the busiest time of the day, about lunchtime to midnight for us, we slow down after hours. Our highest call volume type is the chest pains, difficulty breathing, and occasional injured person. Our age range, you can see that. One thing that I added on here is just wanted you to be aware of this information. The Baylor Grapevine Regional is about to become a level 2 trauma center, which is a pretty big deal for us around here. The only difference between a 2 and a 1, like John Peter Smith, is it is a training facility. So we have a very capable, coming up soon, trauma facility close to us, and that's huge, especially with what has difficult as this for getting around town these days. Wanted to show you our newest firefighters. They all started on June the 16th, so they've got almost 2 months on the job. Dwight Lee, Daniel Flores, and Ryan Van Noy. So far, those guys are doing very well. I noticed this, putting this together, why it kind of goes like that. What can I say? I should have changed it. I started to put Ryan in the middle, but too late for that. So, newly promoted personnel. Some of y'all were at that promotion ceremony. Battalion Chief Bill Versteeg, Captain Jason Moon, Lieutenant Michael Hanks, and Driver Engineer Brad Walton. And that all corresponded. That was done on July 29th, and actually the promotion ceremony was, but the testing and all that, it was a pretty drawn-out process for us. But that was all a result of Rick Clark, Battalion Chief Rick Clark's retirement earlier in the year. And so these guys, we're excited about these guys, what they bring to the table. They're all very educated and just energetic men. A few things from the Fire Marshal's office. So far today, we've had 39 pub ed classes with 864 in the audience. We've done 2,129 smoke detector checks. I'll get into that in just a second as well. Our certificate of occupancy inspections, and I know y'all talked about this. This time last year, we had done 70, and that just gives you an indicator of what's going on. Y'all know that better than I do, but when we look and compare from year to year, that is a pretty significant increase for us on our certificate of occupancies inspection. Our Facebook, we are just, that's to the 11,887 that we have today. Residential fire causes in 2014, cooking is our leading cause. It was last year, it was the year before that, and just on and on. Nationally, in a residential fire standpoint, it's almost always going to be the case. It's going to be unattended cooking. And you can,
Yes, sir. I should have a reduction in my fire.
Yes.
Cooking's never done.
So you can kind of see after that, other than undetermined, which we deal with that from time to time, it just drops off very quickly. Our apartment inspections, like Captain Lander said, and we talk about this a great deal. We work very closely with code enforcement, and we have been out. This was a shift for us in the last couple of years to really put a lot of emphasis on our apartment inspection program. And from a fire department standpoint, a big emphasis is to make sure these smoke detectors are working as they need to be. And you can see here, we've been out quite a bit. We still are finding smoke detectors that have been disabled or not functioning. That number has dropped from last year. So I was hopeful that we, being out and about, would get that number to continue to go up and be in the higher 90s. So what that tells me, though, is that this program, we got to stay with it. And we got to stay out there in those apartments to make sure that the public knows that we're checking and staying on top of those smoke detectors. And the Fire Department Kids Academy, we just finished that up in June. Very successful this year. Couldn't have done it without the Citizens Fire Academy alumni. It was 5 days of learning and education. We had 30 students with a waiting list, so we've got to evaluate next year. I think that program could just get as big as we could handle to take it. But they learned first aid, CPR, all kinds of neat stuff, and it's been very successful so far. CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, started last week. We have 26 students enrolled, and that'll go through into the first week of October. So that's PD and fire do that jointly, and that's one of our bigger classes, at least that we've had so far. And upcoming retirement, Vernon Gilmore is announced his retirement for September 30th, and that will be at City Hall from 2 to 4 p.m. More information will come on that, but that's going to be a big loss for us in the fire department. Vernon, I could spend the rest of the evening telling you how much of an asset he is, not only to the fire department, but the city and the community as a whole. So we want him to stay around and be involved as much as we can keep him. And in closing, that is something to keep in mind. September 11th is right around the corner, and we will have a ceremony out here in front of Fire Administration at our memorial at 9 a.m. So put that in your calendar and come by, and it takes we're planning on about 10 or 15 minutes or so.
Is it 9? I thought you were going to do it a little early.
We were, but we have, Betsy and I have worked on that. It was 9 a.m. It is, yes, sir. And that is, we've got that out and posted it for some time. So, any questions? No helicopters.
No helicopter.
Not this time. No, kept them out.
Okay, I think dinner is ready, and it is Ms. Allenfeld, the head of the table, so chicken asada, which is some people's favorite and some people's not so favorite. But there's plenty of ensalada available if you don't like the asada. And one other thing, there's like 5 desserts in there. If you know Rosalind Moore, that retired from court. Rosalind went to chef school, and she's currently working at SMU. And on her day off today, she decided that she wanted to bring desserts up here. And so there is banana pudding and chocolate cake and pineapple upside down cake and sour cream and pound cake. So that is homemade. The other is it's really good. Probably nobody wants any of that food.
We know if you were to drink, or we